Did you know some of the scariest stories ever told never made it into newspapers or police files? Because the people who lived them were too terrified to speak until now. Tonight, we dive into 4 real encounters shared by 4 different people.
My name is Daniel, and in 2016, I lived alone in a small house just outside Denver. I bought it cheap because it needed renovation, and honestly, I didn't mind. I liked working with my hands. But what I didn't know was that something already lived inside the walls of that house. It started on a cold February night. I was lying in bed scrolling on my phone when I heard it. A soft tapping, coming from the wall right behind my headboard. Tap, tap, tap. I thought it was pipes. Old houses make noises, right? But then the tapping became deliberate. Rhythmic. Almost like fingers. I remember sitting up in bed, my heart pounding, telling myself it was nothing. But then I heard a whisper. A little girl's whisper. Daniel. I'm cold. I froze. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Because nobody else was in my house. The whisper came again, this time from inside the wall. Let me out, please. I jumped out of bed and backed away. I wanted to run out of the house but my legs felt too heavy. After a few minutes I convinced myself it had to be my imagination. Maybe I was half asleep. The next day, I put my ear to the wall. Nothing. For 2 days, nothing. Then on the third night, at around 2:30 a.m., the tapping came back. And this time, it was frantic. Tap 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 tap. I yelled, stop, and the tapping stopped instantly, as if the thing listened. Then a child's voice whispered. Please don't leave again. I hate the dark. That's when I called a contractor friend of mine. I didn't tell him what I heard. I just told him the wall was making noises and maybe an animal crawled in. When he cut open the drywall, I expected to see a raccoon or a squirrel. But instead, there was a small wooden compartment, built intentionally between the studs. A hidden room no larger than a closet. Inside it, were old blankets. A pillow. A few broken crayons. And carved into the wooden plank were the words. I'm sorry, Daddy. There were scratch marks along the inside walls, hundreds of them. My friend stared at me and whispered. Dan, someone kept a kid in here. I wanted to puke. I felt the entire room spin. And then my friend said something that still keeps me awake. The scratches, some are new. We called the police. They sealed off the area and ran an investigation. The previous owner, a man who died 8 years earlier, had a daughter who went missing in 1999. The case went cold. Her body was never found. I moved out that same week. But sometimes, when I think back to those nights, I swear I still hear her whisper. Daniel, please don't leave.
My name is Melissa, and this happened in 2019 during a late-night drive from Tucson to Phoenix. I was traveling alone after visiting family. The road was empty, the sky was pitch black, and the desert stretched endlessly on both sides. Around 1 a.m., I saw a man standing on the side of the highway. Not waving for help. Not walking. Just standing. Perfectly still, facing the road. The moment my headlights touched him, my stomach dropped. He was tall. Unnaturally tall. His limbs looked too long, like someone had stretched him. And he wasn't wearing reflective clothing, just a black suit. Even though it was over 90 degrees outside. I slowed down out of instinct, thinking maybe he was hurt. But when my car got close, I realized I couldn't see his face. Not because it was turned away, but because it looked like he didn't have one. Just a smooth shape where a face should be. I slammed my foot on the gas and sped past him. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I checked my rearview mirror. and saw him stepping onto the road, turning slowly toward my car. I drove faster. After a few minutes, I convinced myself he was just some strange guy or a trick of the light. But then something impossible happened. Someone knocked on my back windshield. Top, top, top. I screamed. There was no way anyone could be on my car. I was going nearly 90 miles an hour. I looked in the mirror and saw a long, black hand pressed against the glass. I swerved. The car shook. And just like that, the hand vanished. I didn't stop driving until I reached Phoenix. When I told Highway Patrol, they exchanged a look and one of them said quietly, "You're the third person this month." They called him the Shadow Man of Interstate 10. A tall, faceless figure who appears on empty roads at night. A figure that sometimes follows cars. I don't drive at night anymore. And if I ever hear that tapping sound again, I don't think I'll survive it a second time.
I was 16 when it happened. Old enough to know better, young enough to ignore every instinct telling me to turn around. I grew up surrounded by farmland and forest. Our nearest neighbor was a 15-minute walk away. My after-school shortcut was a half-mile of open cornfield, the kind where the dry stalks rustle like bones when the wind hits them. It was nearly dark when I crossed that field one winter evening. A fog had rolled in, thin at first, then thicker, swallowing the edges of the field. That's when I saw something take shape ahead of me. A staircase. Perfect. Clean. Polished wood. Just, standing there. No ruins. No foundation. Just stairs. At first I thought someone dumped furniture. But as I got closer, the air around them felt wrong, like the temperature dropped only inside that circle of fog. There were footprints around the stairs. I remember this clearly. They went up the steps. Not a single one came back down. Curiosity is a dangerous thing. I placed my foot on the first step. It was warm. Like body heat. When I touched the railing, a vibration ran through it, like a heartbeat pulsing deep in the wood. The fog closed around me. The world went silent. No wind. No insects. Not even my own breathing sounded right, like the air was too heavy to move. And then, from above me, a whisper. "Don't come up here." Not a scream. Not a threat. A warning. I backed away slowly. But as soon as my foot touched the ground, something pushed the staircase ever so slightly, like something unseen had been standing higher up, shifting its weight. I ran. When I got home, my parents said my face looked white, like I'd seen a corpse. The next morning, my father and I went back. The fog was gone. The staircase was gone. But the footsteps. The ones leading up. They were still carved into the soil. Except now. There were two sets of them. One set going up. One set coming down. And they led into the woods behind our property. To this day, I follow a strict rule. If you see stairs where they don't belong, don't climb them. Someone else might still be up there.
I moved into my small house in Oregon 2 years ago. Quiet street. Friendly neighbors. The kind of place where nothing bad ever happens. That changed fast. The first night my motion-activated camera alerted me at 3:11 a.m. I assumed it was a raccoon. But when I checked the footage, there was a man standing at the end of my driveway. Just standing there. Facing the house. Not moving. I zoomed in. His clothing was normal jeans jacket, but his face was blurred, as if the camera refused to capture its shape. I told myself it was a glitch. The next night it happened again. And again. And then again. Every night at 3:11 a.m. Never earlier, never later, the man appeared. By night 5 he had moved closer, now halfway up my driveway. Still standing perfectly still. On night 9 he was near my porch light. Not touching anything. Just watching the house. My fear turned into dread. Then dread into obsession. I stayed awake every night glued to the live feed. On night 12 something changed. At first there was nothing, no alert. No figure. Relief washed over me. Then at 3:11 a.m., my doorbell camera activated. Someone was on the porch. When I opened the clip I felt my stomach drop. The man was standing inches from the camera. His hand raised as if he'd been reaching toward the lens. And that blur. That impossible blur. It wasn't just hiding his face, it was moving on its own. Almost breathing. I called the police. They came, checked the whole property, found nothing. They suggested maybe it was a prank. A friend messing around. But the man came back. Night 13 the feed didn't show him. Instead, at exactly 3:11 a.m. the screen went pitch black. Someone was covering the camera with their hand. The force bent the lens slightly inward. I watched in paralyzed silence, knowing he was just outside my door inches away, his hand on the camera listening. For the next month, I slept with a chair under my doorknob. I eventually moved out, changed my number, deleted my security system app. But a few weeks ago, I woke up at 3:11 a.m. for the first time in months. No reason, no sound, just instinct. And there, pressed against my bedroom window, was a handprint. Same size, same shape. He found me.
If you made it to the end, remember this. Every story you heard tonight came from someone who never expected to experience the impossible. Sometimes the real horror isn't what we see in movies. It's what happens to ordinary people when no one else is watching. If you want more true accounts like these, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and tell us which story haunted you the most tonight.